The Galactic Council's most secure prison facility, Station Nexus 7, floated in the void between three dying stars. Captain Zethkar of the Vorthak Empire watched through reinforced viewing ports as the transport ship approached. Inside that vessel was something that made even hardened warriors nervous, a Krillian Shadowblade. "Are you certain about this, Captain?" First Officer LYSS whispered, her four eyes blinking rapidly in distress. The human prisoner has shown no signs of cooperation for 3 cycles. Perhaps we should try different methods. Zethkar's mandibles clicked in annoyance. The Council wants information about Earth's defensive capabilities. The human Marcus Chun refuses to speak. The Shadowblade will make him talk. The transport docked with a metallic clang that echoed through the station's corridors. Prison guards, each wearing full environmental suits and carrying plasma weapons, escorted their cargo toward the detention levels. Even through the containment field, the Krillians' presence felt like ice water running through everyone's veins. Krillians were the galaxy's most feared assassins. Standing 8 feet tall, with obsidian-black exoskeletons and razor-sharp limbs, they could slice through titanium with their natural weapons. Their homeworld was a nightmare of perpetual darkness where they hunted creatures that would terrify most civilized species. But this particular Shadowblade, designation Vexthaner, had done something that shocked even his own kind. He had murdered 17 council diplomats during peace negotiations. Not in honorable combat, but slowly, methodically while they slept. The recordings showed him savoring their fear, their pleas for mercy. Even other Krillians called him monster. "The humans call their world a Deathworld," Zethkar muttered as they walked toward the maximum security wing. "They think they're tough because they evolved with predators and natural disasters. Wait until they see what real death looks like." Marcus Chun sat in his cell, reading a book on quantum mechanics that the guards had allowed him to keep. At 35 years old, he looked unremarkable by galactic standards. Average height for a human, brown hair starting to gray at the temples, wearing the standard gray prison uniform. The only thing that marked him as unusual was the calm in his dark eyes, a stillness that had unnerved his captors since his arrival. The human had been captured during a raid on a research station near Jupiter. Intelligence suggested he was a high-ranking scientist involved in Earth's planetary defense systems. For 3 months, interrogators had used every technique the galaxy knew. Neural probes, truth serums, psychological pressure. Nothing worked. Marcus either genuinely didn't know what they wanted to hear, or he had willpower beyond anything they'd encountered. "Time for a new approach," Zethkar announced as he activated the cell's communication system. "Human, you have a visitor." Marcus looked up from his book, marking his place with a finger. "Oh, someone from the embassy, finally?" "Not exactly." The holding area's main doors hissed open, and Vexthaner entered. The Shadowblade moved like liquid death, each step perfectly silent despite his massive frame. His compound eyes scanned the area while his razor-sharp claws extended and retracted in anticipation. A low clicking sound emerged from his throat, the Krillian equivalent of a predator's purr. Every guard in the area stepped back instinctively. Even through the containment field, the alien radiated menace like heat from a star. This was a creature that had perfected killing as an art form, who found joy in others' suffering. Marcus set down his book and walked to the front of his cell. He studied the Shadowblade for several seconds, head tilted slightly to one side. Then, something unexpected happened. Marcus laughed. Not a nervous giggle or hysterical outburst, but a genuine, warm chuckle that echoed off the metal walls. The kind of laugh someone might make when seeing an old friend doing something silly. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, wiping his eyes. "It's just, they brought you here to scare me, didn't they? You specifically?" He gestured toward Vexthaner with obvious amusement. "This is their idea of psychological pressure." The Shadowblade's clicking stopped. His head swiveled toward Marcus with mechanical precision. "You find death amusing, little mammal?" "Oh, I find this whole situation hilarious," Marcus replied, sitting back down on his bunk. "Do you know why?" Vexthaner moved closer to the containment field. Energy crackled between them, but the barrier held. Enlighten me before you die screaming. Marcus picked up his book again, completely relaxed. Because whoever planned this doesn't understand humans at all. You see, where I come from, we have a saying, you can't scare someone who's already been through hell. The guards exchanged confused glances. Zethkar leaned forward, trying to understand what was happening. The human should be cowering, begging, breaking down. Instead, he seemed genuinely entertained. I grew up in Detroit. Marcus continued conversationally. Do you know what Detroit was like in the 2090s? Gang wars, chemical pollution, buildings collapsing from acid rain. I walked to school past burning cars and bodies in the streets. My family's apartment had bars on every window and 3 different locks on the door. He turned a page in his book, as if discussing the weather. When I was 12, someone broke into our home at night. I hid in a closet for 6 hours, listening to them torture my parents for the location of my father's research notes. The sounds they made, well, let's just say your reputation for creative killing isn't as unique as you think. Vexthaner's compound eyes focused entirely on the human now. Yet you survived. I did more than survive, Marcus said quietly. I learned. I adapted. I got stronger. He looked directly at the Shadow Blade. You know what the funny thing is? After everything I've been through, after watching my world nearly destroy itself, and then rebuild stronger than ever, they think one overgrown bug is going to break me. The clicking resumed, but now it sounded different. Less confident. Your bravado won't save you when the pain begins. Marcus stood up and walked back to the containment field. He placed one hand against the energy barrier, just inches from where Vexthaner's claws waited. You still don't get it. You're not the scariest thing I've ever faced. You're not even close. He smiled, and for the first time since the Shadow Blade's arrival, everyone in the room felt their blood run cold. Because there was something in that smile, not madness or fear, but a cold certainty that spoke of experiences beyond their understanding. The scariest thing I ever faced was coming home to find my 8-year-old sister had been shot by a stray bullet during a gang fight, Marcus said softly. Holding her in my arms while she died, knowing I couldn't do anything to save her. That taught me something important about pain and fear. He leaned closer to the field. Once you've felt real loss, once you've had your heart completely destroyed and somehow found the strength to keep going, physical pain becomes manageable. You can cut me, burn me, do whatever your species considers artistic torture. But you can't take away something I don't have anymore. The silence stretched for long moments. Even Vexthaner seemed uncertain now, his predatory confidence shaken by something he'd never encountered before. Prey that genuinely wasn't afraid. Besides, Marcus added, returning to his relaxed tone, if you do kill me, you'll never get the information they want. And if you don't kill me, well, he shrugged. I've got nowhere else to be. This cell is actually more comfortable than my first apartment. Captain Zethkar felt his confidence crumbling. The interrogation was supposed to go differently. The human should be broken, terrified, ready to reveal Earth's secrets. Instead, he'd somehow turned the tables without even trying. You're lying, Vexthaner hissed. All creatures fear death. Marcus reopened his book. Maybe, but I've been dead inside since I was 12 years old. Anything you do to my body is just redundant. The Shadow Blade stood motionless for several minutes, studying this strange creature who laughed at death and spoke of horror as casually as discussing lunch. This wasn't how prey was supposed to behave. This violated everything he understood about intimidation and fear. Interesting, Vexthaner finally said. Perhaps you and I should speak more privately. Marcus looked up again, and his smile widened. Oh, this should be fun. Hashtag, they brought a murderer. The human Deathworlder just laughed. Part 2. 3 hours later, Captain Zethkar stared at the security monitors in disbelief. The interrogation chamber had been cleared of all personnel except Marcus Chun and Vexthaner. The containment field between them had been lowered at the Shadow Blade's request, something that had required approval from the highest levels of command. What Zethkar was watching made no sense. Marcus sat calmly in a metal chair, hands folded in his lap, while the galaxy's most feared assassin paced around him. Instead of screaming in agony, the human appeared to be talking, just talking. Occasionally, he would gesture with his hands as if explaining something complex. "Turn up the audio," Zethkar ordered, which is why the nuclear winter of 2089 was actually beneficial in the long run, Marcus was saying. Sure, 30 million people died in the first year, but the survivors developed technologies that eventually led to our breakthrough in atmosphere processing. Sometimes destruction creates opportunities. Vexthaner stopped pacing and looked down at the human. "You speak of mass death as if it were a learning experience." "Because it was," Marcus replied matter-of-factly. "Humans are incredibly good at adapting to horrible circumstances. We've been doing it for millennia. Plague, war, natural disasters, economic collapse, we survive it all and come back stronger." The Shadowblade's head tilted in that mechanical way of his kind. "Yet you claim to have been dead inside since childhood." Marcus smiled sadly. "Emotionally dead, yes. But that doesn't mean I stopped learning or growing. If anything, it made me more observant. When you're not clouded by strong emotions, you see things more clearly. Such as the fact that you've killed 17 council diplomats, but you haven't even tried to hurt me yet," Marcus said. "Which tells me something interesting about your psychology." For the first time since his capture, Vexthaner looked genuinely surprised. "Explain." Marcus leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed despite being alone with a creature that could slice him apart in seconds. "You're bored. Killing stopped being satisfying a long time ago, didn't it? Too easy. Too predictable. Everyone reacts the same way. Fear, pain, begging death. You've done it so many times it's become routine." The alien assassin went very still. "You presume much, human. Doi. Let me tell you what I think happened with those diplomats," Marcus continued, his voice taking on the tone of a lecturer addressing students. "You didn't kill them for political reasons or personal hatred. You killed them because you were curious. You wanted to see if supposedly civilized beings would break differently than your usual prey." Vexthaner's clicking resumed, but it was different now, slower, more thoughtful. "And what did I learn? That they didn't. They begged and cried and died just like everyone else, which must have been incredibly disappointing." Marcus met the Shadowblade's compound eyes without flinching. "But I'm different, aren't I? I'm not afraid, and I'm not breaking. For the first time in years, you've encountered something genuinely unpredictable." The silence stretched between them. Outside the interrogation chamber, Zethkar and his staff watched with growing alarm. This wasn't an interrogation anymore. It was something else entirely. Two predators sizing each other up. "You're trying to manipulate me," Vexthaner finally said. "Of course I am," Marcus admitted cheerfully. "But I'm also telling the truth. Both things can be true simultaneously. That's another human skill, holding contradictory ideas without cognitive dissonance. And what do you hope to accomplish with this manipulation?" Marcus stood up and began walking around the chamber, mirroring Vexthaner's earlier pacing. "I want to make you a proposition. A trade, if you will. I am not in the business of making deals with prey." "See, there's that word again, prey." Marcus stopped directly in front of the towering alien. "But I'm not prey, am I? Prey runs. Prey hides. Prey begs. I'm doing none of those things. So what does that make me?" Vexthaner's head tilted again. "What indeed? I'll tell you what I am," Marcus said quietly. "I'm someone who understands you better than you understand yourself. I know what it's like to have emotions burned away by trauma. I know what it's like to function perfectly while feeling nothing inside. And I know what it's like to search desperately for something, anything, that makes you feel alive again." The Shadowblade took a step backward. For the first time since entering the chamber, he seemed unsure. "Here's my proposition," Marcus continued. "I'll give your captors the information they want about Earth's defenses. Not because I'm afraid of you, but because I choose to. In exchange, I want you to do something for me. Name it. I want you to kill Captain Zethkar." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. On the security monitors, Zethkar went pale, his mandibles clattering in shock. Vexthaner's compound eyes focused intently on Marcus. Explain your reasoning. Zethkar ordered the destruction of a civilian research station to capture me. Marcus said, his voice still calm, but with an edge of steel underneath. 43 scientists died, including 2 of my colleagues who had families. He could have taken me during a supply run or when I was traveling between stations. Instead, he chose the method that would cause maximum casualties. Marcus walked to the chamber's observation window and looked directly at where he knew the captain was watching. That wasn't a tactical decision. It was cruelty for its own sake. The kind of casual brutality that shows a complete disregard for innocent life. And you believe he deserves death for this? Marcus turned back to the Shadowblade. I believe he represents everything that's wrong with the current galactic power structure. Overwhelming force used against helpless targets. Bureaucrats making decisions that cost lives without ever facing consequences themselves. He paused, considering his words carefully. But, more importantly, I believe you're looking for a target that would actually challenge you. Zethkar isn't helpless. He's a trained military officer with bodyguards, security systems, and an entire ship's crew protecting him. Killing him would require planning, skill, and creativity. Vexthaner began clicking again, faster now, almost excited. You offer me a hunt. I offer you the most challenging hunt you've had in years. A target that deserves to die, protected by every advantage the galactic military can provide. The kind of kill that would be remembered, talked about, feared. Marcus smiled coldly. The kind that might actually make you feel something again. The assassin moved closer, studying Marcus with new interest. And in exchange, you betray your own species? No, Marcus said firmly. In exchange, I save my species. This caught Vexthaner off guard. Explain. Marcus sat back down, his demeanor shifting to that of a patient teacher. Earth's real defenses aren't what the Council thinks they are. They're looking for information about our weapons, our fleet positions, our technological capabilities. But those aren't what make humans dangerous. What does? Our adaptability, our stubbornness, our absolute refusal to surrender even when defeat seems certain. Marcus leaned forward. The Council is planning to invade Earth, thinking they can conquer us with superior firepower. But if I give them false information, convince them we're weaker than we are, they'll underestimate us. Vexthaner's clicking took on a different rhythm. You would sacrifice this ship, this crew, to protect your homeworld? Without hesitation. Every single life on this station is worth less to me than one human child back on Earth. Marcus's voice carried absolute conviction. But I'm not asking you to help me out of altruism. I'm offering you something you want in exchange for something I need. The Shadowblade began pacing again, but his movement was different now, more purposeful, like a predator that had finally caught an interesting scent. You understand that once I agree to this bargain, there will be no going back. I will kill the captain and his senior staff. The station will descend into chaos. Perfect, Marcus said with genuine satisfaction. During that chaos, I'll access their communication systems and send false intelligence reports to the Council. By the time anyone realizes what's happened, it will be too late. And you trust me to uphold my end of this bargain? Marcus laughed again, that same warm chuckle that had started everything. I trust you to do what's in your nature. You're a killer who's grown bored with easy prey. I'm offering you the chance to hunt something challenging again. You can't resist that any more than a human can resist breathing. Vexthaner stopped pacing and stood perfectly still for nearly a minute. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a note of something that might have been respect. You are not what I expected, Marcus Chon of Earth. Neither are you, Marcus replied. I expected a mindless killing machine. Instead, I find a sophisticated predator suffering from existential boredom. We're both more complex than our reputations suggest. Indeed, the Shadowblade extended one razor-sharp claw toward Marcus. I accept your bargain, human, but I have one condition of my own. Name it. When this is over, when your people have defeated the Council's invasion and established their dominance in this sector, I want to visit your homeworld. I want to see this death world that produces creatures like you. Marcus reached out and carefully shook the offered claw, unbothered by how easily it could slice through his hand. Deal. But I should warn you, Earth isn't dangerous because of our predators or our environment. It's dangerous because of what we've become surviving them. All the more reason to visit, Vexthaner said, and for the first time his clicking sounded almost like laughter. Hashtag they brought a murderer. The human Deathworlder just laughed. Part 3. The emergency klaxons began wailing at exactly 0347 station time. Captain Zeth Carr jerked awake in his quarters, mandibles clicking in confusion as red warning lights bathed everything in bloody illumination. He reached for his communication device, but the display showed only static. Computer, report status, he barked. Silence. Down in the maximum security wing, Vexthaner moved through the corridors like a ghost made of razors and death. The Shadow Blade had disabled 3 security checkpoints without triggering a single alarm until now. Each guard had died instantly, their final expressions showing more surprise than fear. But the real masterpiece was still to come. Marcus Chun sat in his cell, apparently reading the same quantum mechanics textbook when the first explosion rocked the station. He didn't even look up from a page. 30 seconds later, the emergency lighting kicked in and his cell door clicked open, just as he'd known it would when Vexthaner reached the command center. Right on schedule, Marcus murmured, closing his book and standing up. The alien assassin had been thorough, not just in killing, but in following the plan they devised together. The station's security grid was down, internal communications were severed, and the command staff would be in complete disarray. Perfect conditions for what came next. Marcus made his way through the empty corridors toward the communications array. He passed several bodies, guards who'd had the misfortune to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Vexthaner had been efficient, as promised. No torture, no sadistic games, just quick, clean deaths that served their purpose. The communications bay was unguarded when Marcus arrived. Why would it need protection when the entire station was supposed to be secure? He activated the main console and began uploading the data package he'd been carrying in his head since capture. False intelligence about Earth's defensive capabilities, carefully crafted to ensure the Council would make catastrophic miscalculations. According to his fabricated reports, Earth's orbital platforms were 40% understaffed. The planetary shield generators had critical flaws in their power distribution systems. The human fleet was positioned incorrectly, leaving massive gaps in coverage around the major population centers. All lies, but believable ones based on the Council's existing assumptions about human incompetence. Meanwhile, Captain Zeth Carr had finally managed to reach the bridge, where he found his senior staff in various states of panic. The Vorthak military prided itself on discipline, but nothing had prepared them for a Krillian Shadow Blade loose on their station. Report, he roared over the continuing alarms. Sir, we've lost contact with security sections 7 through 12, his tactical officer stammered. Internal sensors show multiple breaches in the command levels. And, sir, we're picking up movement in your private quarters. Zeth Carr's blood turned to ice. His quarters, where he kept his most sensitive files, his personal communications with the Council, my family photos, he whispered. The realization hit him like a physical blow. This wasn't random violence. It was targeted, personal. Someone knew exactly how to hurt him most effectively. In the captain's quarters, Vexthaner studied the holographic images with professional interest. Zeth Carr's mate and offspring on their homeworld, smiling and happy, completely unaware that their patriarch had become a target. The Shadow Blade could appreciate the psychological impact of such knowledge falling into enemy hands. But that wasn't why he was here. The door chimed, and Zeth Carr entered with his weapon drawn. The captain was no coward. Whatever else could be said about him, he had the courage to face danger personally rather than sending subordinates to die in his place. Vexthaner, Zeth Carr said, his voice steady despite the circumstances. I should have expected this. The human got to you somehow, didn't he? The Shadow Blade turned slowly, making no aggressive moves yet. He made me an offer I found compelling. What could a human possibly offer you? Credits? Freedom? We both know you could escape this station whenever you chose. Entertainment, Vexthaner replied simply. When did you last face a truly challenging hunt, Captain? When did you last feel your pulse quicken with genuine uncertainty about the outcome? Zethkar kept his weapon trained on the assassin, though they both knew it would be largely ineffective. You're talking about murder as recreation. I'm talking about purpose. The shadow blade began moving, slowly circling the room. You spent your career killing from a distance, ordering bombardments, commanding fleets, sending others to die while you remained safe. When did you last look death in the face and wonder which of you would walk away? I'm looking at it right now, Zethkar growled. Yes, Vexthaner said with satisfaction. You are. What followed was less a fight than an elegant dance. Zethkar was skilled, well-trained, and desperate, but Vexthaner was an artist whose medium happened to be death. The captain's plasma rifle discharged 3 times, each shot carefully deflected or avoided entirely. When the end came, it was quick but not without dignity, a warrior's death rather than an execution. Across the station, Marcus finished uploading his false intelligence and began working on Phase 2 of their plan. The Council would receive information suggesting that Earth was vulnerable to a specific type of attack, one that would actually walk their invasion fleet directly into humanity's strongest defensive positions. But, more importantly, they would learn about it from multiple sources. Marcus accessed personnel files and began crafting follow-up reports from other supposed human prisoners across the galaxy. Each would tell a slightly different version of the same story, with just enough variation to seem authentic while reinforcing the central deception. The beauty was that the Council wanted to believe humans were incompetent. They'd been conditioned by decades of observing humanity's chaotic political systems and seemingly self-destructive tendencies. The idea that Earth's defenses were poorly organized would fit perfectly with their existing prejudices. As he worked, Marcus allowed himself a moment to think about home. Detroit had taught him that survival often required making hard choices. His parents had died, refusing to give up research that could save lives. His sister had died in violence that served no purpose except to feed someone else's cruelty. But their deaths had meaning now. The information he was sending would save billions of lives when the Council's invasion failed catastrophically. Sometimes the greatest victory came from appearing to lose. An hour later, Vexthaner found him in the communications bay, covered in blood that wasn't his own but looking oddly peaceful. It's done, the Shadowblade announced. Zethkar and his senior staff are dead. The remaining crew will find them eventually, but not before your transmission completes. Marcus nodded without looking up from his work. Good. I've sent preliminary reports to 7 different Council intelligence centers. Each one thinks they're getting exclusive information from a different source. By the time they cross-reference everything, they'll be convinced Earth is practically defenseless. And your people will be ready for them. My people are always ready, Marcus said with quiet pride. We've been fighting for our lives since we climbed down from the trees. The Council thinks they're dealing with another typical civilized species. They're about to learn why humans are called Deathworlders. Vexthaner studied the human with something approaching admiration. You feel no remorse for the deaths your deception will cause. Marcus finally looked up from his console, and his eyes held depths of grief and determination that the assassin found unexpectedly moving. I feel remorse for every death I've ever caused or witnessed. The guards you killed to get here, the Council forces who will die when Earth destroys their invasion fleet, even Captain Zethkar. But remorse is a luxury I can't afford when my entire species is at stake. Spoken like a true predator. No, Marcus corrected gently. Spoken like a human. We're not predators by nature. We're prey that learn to fight back. There's a difference. The station's backup power finally kicked in, bathing everything in harsh white light. In the distance, they could hear crew members shouting orders and trying to restore communications. Soon, someone would discover the bodies and piece together what had happened. What now? Vexthaner asked. Marcus saved his work and stood up, stretching muscles stiff from hours of concentrated effort. Now we wait. The council will receive my intelligence reports and spend several weeks planning their attack. Earth's defense forces will prepare for an invasion they know is coming but pretend to know nothing about. And when the shooting starts, he smiled that same cold smile that had first unnerved everyone in the detention center. Well, let's just say the galaxy is about to learn why humans don't make good victims. And what of us? Our bargain is complete. Marcus walked to the viewing port and looked out at the stars beyond. Somewhere among them was a small blue world where children played in cities that had been rebuilt from nuclear ash, where humanity had learned to turn its greatest weaknesses into unbreakable strengths. Our bargain is just beginning, he said finally. When this is over, you'll visit Earth as promised. But first, you're going to help me get off this station alive. Because I want to be there when the Council fleet arrives. I want to watch their faces when they realize they've been played by a species they considered inferior. Vexthaner's compound eyes glittered with anticipation. You believe we can reach Earth before the invasion begins? I don't believe it, Marcus said with absolute certainty. I know it, because there's one more thing humans are excellent at that the galaxy hasn't learned yet, which is... Marcus turned away from the stars and headed for the docking bay where several scout ships waited. We're very, very good at going home,